Also,
Yes, yes.
remind me your job, look, if I
Police
may.
officer. Police
Of
officer.
course, of course, of course, and I need to be extra careful with you. Look, obviously, your official position puts you in on a pedestal. Uh,
Not really, no.
paying your station. Look,
Economic crime. I'm FCID. It's
how interesting. How interesting
financial.
is that? Prosit, prosit. Very interesting. I mean, I assume that is very interesting.
Yes, yes, it is.
Għandu xaqsam ma' criminology.
Actually, criminology għandu x'jaqsam ma' kull ħaġa li għandna tipo fil-korp ta' polizzija. It's like imma bħala financial it's more on the lines of
Fraud.
analyzing accounts
Mhm.
and
It is.
fraud.
It is the back end of finding the culprit. It's what I'm not seeing it as the most exciting, but indeed it is part of the most exciting because without you
Yes.
guys, I'm assuming that obviously you not realize what's going on.
Especially the cases with money laundering, for example, every crime usually involves money. When there's money, there's trying to launder that money. So every crime there's money laundering probably.
In fact, today I was reading this article, very interesting article. It was a news article about those 5 individuals who were arraigned a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure I got the details right, Ijiviri, with regards to a kidnapping or an alleged kidnapping. And now it's also been discovered that they are involved in buying weapons and and explosives and drugs using cryptocurrency over the dark web. It sounds like something out of one of these crime action movies that we usually get on Netflix. It's incredible. I'm not going to ask you obviously if you're involved. That would be very unethical of me, but sort of hearing these things happening in our tiny little Malta just still shocks me. I don't know if I'm naive. It could be that I'm still naive and that I still remember and reminisce about the Malta of 20, 30 years ago and beyond. Perhaps I'm hopeful. We'll see, and
Yes,
so
yes.
on.
Hopefully we'll go back to those days, but with
With
technology it's quite hard.
It's
With
quite hard.
blockchain and everything, it's very
Exactly,
hard.
exactly. So people learn, people realize the potential, the criminal potential, obviously, and how it's easier it is today to be a criminal than yesteryear. So obviously we do get these individuals in Mansop. I hope they're not as numerous as we think. Look, thank you. And I guess I wish you a very good day at work tomorrow, and I'm sure that you'll get your leave at some point in time
Thank you.
to
Thank
be
you.
able to do the assignments, of course. Yeah. Thank you, Luke. Maria. Hello, Maria.
Hey, good evening.
How are
Okay,
you, Maria? Mux ħażin, grazzi. Inti?
better, better than other days, at least today.
In the perspective of a holiday, I'm assuming.
Yes, thank God no work tomorrow, so it's better. And I managed to do a lot of things this working week at
Mm-hmm.
at work. I mean, so I'm at least I can take my leave and just not
With a
worry.
mind at rest, exactly, that you don't have so much more to get back to on Friday, or if you bridge the weekend on Monday. Anyone bridge the weekend, guys? That would have been awesome, bridging the weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Oh my God, 4 days. Imagine that. Anyone bridge the weekend?
Wish I did, but I'm going to have to do a beer run for Friday for the rest of work. So yeah,
I see.
I have to go in for work. But hey, at
Okay.
least we have a little thing going on. So
And at least sort of it's first there's a break, then one day of work, then another break, so it wouldn't look it wouldn't look that bad. Sort of,
exactly.
Actually, I love having a holiday in the middle of the week because the week seems so much shorter. It's like 2 days of work, then another holiday and 2 days of work, and it looks like there wasn't even a week of work, even if it's just one day. But I prefer holidays to be midweek. But that's just me. Insomma. Guys, I would like to ask you if one, you've started working on the project, the assignment, and two, if you have some queries perhaps that you would wish we to clarify at this point. So floor is yours. Obviously, if you haven't started yet, do not worry. Do not worry. There's still ample time. But obviously, for those people who have started, please feel free to ask any questions. Anyone?
I've started, but no questions.
Very good. Very good. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Because we have to do a 2-board storyboard. So
Yes.
2 boards, as in like 2 scenes, because I didn't get that right.
Mela, not necessarily. It's a 2-board because I am requesting that you have 2 pages, and on each page you have around those 6. What
12
can I?
I'm doing. 12.
12
Yeah.
on each. 12 on each,
Ah,
or 6 or 12 total.
yeah, 12 on each I was going to do. So, alright, that's what I did wrong. So I have to do 6 and 6, basically.
Not you have to do, Jamie, not necessarily have to. What I mean is that usually 6 would be sort of the minimum required on one single sheet. So if you want to do a couple more, or if you think that with a couple less you can also get away with it, I will not really worry about it. The important thing is that you get the message across. Issa, going back to your question of the scenes, a scene can change, literally can change from one to the other. Okay, from one image to the other. What I do suggest strongly is that you keep the scenes limited, because usually it's very difficult though to be able to enact a scene in just one image, a whole scene. Okay, so if you can do, for example, a story of, let's say, 2 or 3 scenes maximum, that will mean that you have about 3 or 4 images per scene, which would amount to a total of around 12.
Alright.
Okay, and I'm giving you averages because obviously then it all depends on how long the scene is. Because if you have a scene, for example, of a door opening and closing and someone just walking through, that is a scene technically. That would be just one image.
Yes, exactly. And then you point with arrows, for example, in that case.
Exactly.
Alright, and the templates, I couldn't download them from the website. I had to go on Google and find a template myself.
Well, proceed, you found a solution, and I'm a bit surprised when you're saying that you can't download them. Let me just give a quick check.
I'll go in. Ash.
It doesn't really matter if you found them on Google. Those were just guidelines, visual guidelines, so you know, especially what they look like, right? And you'll download something similar. So they don't have necessarily to be exactly the same as the ones that I showed you. So you're safe.
Alright, I downloaded one with a 12 panel, and I wanted to check that with you, if it's alright.
Have you started working on it already?
Yes.
Well, if you have downloaded one with a 12 panel, you can basically use that one and that one only, because there you have 6.
Alright. That's that. Alright. But I mean, with Photoshop, you can always like move. I can select with the layers and put it on another sheet if it's an issue.
Exactly.
But if it's alright, I'll use the 12 panel.
Yes, definitely alright. Don't need to worry about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mela, basically, I'm on my screen. You're seeing the template, and there's download file right under the name of the file itself, storyboard_template.jpg. And you click on download file. The only thing it does is that does not download it, but it just opens the file itself in the browser. Then you have to click on zoom, and it blows it up to full proportion, and then you right click and save image.
Alright, I didn't get there. I was gonna like crop it, and what wouldn't make sense like that. It will download on your desktop or whatever, and somehow.
If you keep it as one whole thing, ultimately it won't make that much of a difference. You know?
Okay.
I had that rule applied because I used to ask for a hard copy, and obviously if they did, for example, 12 or more than 12 on one A3, then they would have been so small that would have been difficult for someone to decipher what's in each panel.
I see. Alright.
That one can say has become now useless as a rule. So if you can give me one image like this, and obviously, as I said, it would be sort of a largish one like that, I would manage to see everything. Okay, so trust me, it doesn't really matter. Tayyip?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Anyone else, please? Okay, brilliant. Seems everything's okay. Remember that I will still be open for any clarifications whenever. All you need to do is just message me on Discord, and I'll get back to you ASAP. Do not worry about messaging me outside of work hours. Trust me, we don't really work like that at St. Martin's. So that we just send the message, and then when I find the time, and I will find the time, I will answer you immediately. So just drop the message over there, and then I will get back to you whenever. Usually I try to get back to you ASAP. So just in case, during the coming longish weekend, you start doing something and you get stuck or something, just get back to me. Remember, the most important thing that I'm looking forward to, apart from the visuals, the actual visuals and the story itself, is the self-assessment report. I strongly suggest that while you are going through the motions of creating your project, you actually record your thought process. All right, so what you're thinking, you actually, you can just literally type down what you're thinking, how you're thinking, the problems that cropping up in your mind about what you're just about. For example, right now, Jamie mentioned also something about finding difficult in downloading, and so I know it's something not that sounds not that important, but that could be a one-liner also in the self-assessment, because it is part of the whole process. Right? So even if it sounds silly to you, it won't be silly to me, because I would get a clearer picture of what you have gone through, or what I have made you go through, in a way. Okay, peeps? Brilliant.
Okay, perfect.
Sounds good.
Cheers. Last time I took a couple of annotations with regards to what was in store for today, and my annotations were that we need to cover slides 6 till 12 with regards to the question, what is art? And then we start off again from vision cues on slide 22. So we're going to start off our lecture today from slide 6. And basically the question that we were asking was, is this art or is this not art? And what we have in front of us over there is an image. It's a representative image. It represents something. And I am not sure if I've asked you this question already, but I would like to ask it again. What is it that you see in front of you right now on my screen? What can you see?
Looks like a lake.
Great, thank you. A lake, brilliant. What else?
You can see the reflection of the trees in it as well.
Of the
Even though
trees.
you can't see the trees.
Excellent. Sort of already, without knowing that there are trees, you're imagining that there's a shoreline over here with trees on that shoreline which are being reflected in the water. Brilliant. We already assume that there's water and trees. What else can we see in this painting?
The rest of the fauna of the lake, so the flowers, the
Lilies, water lilies, basically.
the water lilies, yeah, and
Exactly. Floating on the water. Am I right? Is that what you're saying?
yes, the fauna.
Now, technically speaking, you have all been, let's say, cheated in a sense. Because technically speaking, all that you're seeing over there is different variations and shades and tints of blue and green on a canvas, literally. Some of it has been applied in an impasto technique, and this is the paint which appears thicker. Some of it has been applied using more oil, so obviously it's more smudged, so it appears a bit less focused and a bit less defined. So technically speaking, all it is different techniques of paint application on a canvas. But we, including myself, are seeing water, we're seeing trees, we're seeing water lilies, we're seeing flowers, they're floating on the water, and so on and so forth. We're assuming that there's a coastline, there's a river shore over here with more trees, the actual trees over here, the physical trees, not just the reflections, and so on and so forth. Monet was a French artist. This is literally water lilies. The painting, he did a series of paintings called Water Lilies, and he was actually studying the application of paint and how through the application of paint he could create representations of reality. And in fact, with the discovery of impasto, we could actually create, because obviously as an artist myself, I can understand Monet's studies and how he tried to experiment with paint to be able to bring out more three-dimensionality. In fact, it is not a realist painting. There's no realism, absolutely no realism. It's literally paint which has been applied using a painting knife in motions. You can see the motions of the painting knife, literally. But when we see it collectively together, suddenly it blows up into this three-dimensional picture with depth and with perspective, aerial perspective, not linear perspective. And so all in all, it is nearly photographic. This is what we call impressionism. It's an impression of reality. Now, I'm not here to give you a historic lesson of art. And I assume that you're not interested in getting a lesson of art. But my question is, would you consider this as art? It is not evoking arguments, but
Yes,
it's evoking something else. Bridget,
it's
tell me.
definitely art. I think that when I think of art, I think of this type of stuff,
Mhm.
personally.
The same for me.
Okay. So this for you would be the epitome of art.
Yeah,
Okay.
Monet, that's the best there is almost. No?
It's subjective.
Yes.
Some people might tell you Picasso, some people might tell you Van Gogh, some people might tell you, I don't know, Caravaggio. Some people might say, I don't know. I'm trying to remember a particular name. I have a painting of him, if I'm not mistaken. No, I don't. But well, one second, guys. That's the good thing about having the internet at the tip of your fingers. Okay, bear with me, guys. Stop. Yes, Pollock. Have you ever heard of Pollock? Jackson Pollock. Anyone? Here's a Pollock painting. These paintings, Pollock's paintings, go at roughly around 5 to 15 million each. They're quite gigantic. They're quite enormous. It's called drip painting. Has anyone heard of Jackson Pollock before?
No.
I think we mentioned him in a previous lesson. I think.
In previous lesson, in passing. And did I tell you the story of Jackson Pollock, how he paints? I did, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yes, when he's inebriated, and then when he's in his right sense of mind, he sits down on one of these tennis chairs and just crops a part of his work. For example, some people admire Pollock's strategy in art because it is in a way a study of the insanity of the brain, the insanity of the mind. Because let's face it, don't drugs put you in a state of mind which is totally diverse from the state of mind which is required by society? So is this not art when we are realizing the fruits of an insane mind because of a state of inebriation? Are you understanding me, guys? So it's still evoking expression, it's still evoking emotion. And if we were to answer the question, what is art, in a simple answer such as art is something which evokes expression and emotion, then Jackson Pollock would definitely stand under it. So I definitely understand you when you say this is one of the peaks of art. Technically speaking, we have reached the high Renaissance. We have gone through the mannerism part of the post-Renaissance, and now we're in Impressionism. But first of all, one of my favorites, Brigitte, would be Expressionism, actually, more than Impressionism. I love Impressionism, don't get me wrong, because of the colors, because of the textures, and because of so much more. But Expressionism then, which originated from Germany and from the north, was a way how feelings were expressed through the painting itself. So it's not expressing sort of using techniques to create realism or an effect of realism, but it's more of expressing yourself. Expressionism, expressing yourself using painting and using color and color associations. Have you ever heard of the Fauves, or Fauvism? Anyone? Very interesting movement.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Here we go. I love the Fauves. The Fauves, actually, I think you might be interested in this, Brigitte. If you like Impressionism, you definitely love you love Fauvism. The Fauves, a Fauve, first of all, is nothing more than a wild animal in French. Okay, again, it's a French movement originated in France. Very much parallel with Impressionism. In fact, it was part of the Impressionist movement. And all they did was literally change colors. That's all they did. They just applied different colors which were not expected. For example, trees which would be purple and red, but there would still be greenish tones. But then you have blues, for example, also. And the grass also is different colors. They were extremely colorful. Extremely expressive also. So this was a transition between Impressionism and Expressionism in a way.
Yeah, that is very nice. I'm eyeing that one in the middle, the landscape one.
Yeah. Are you referring to the seascape or the landscape over here, or this one? This one.
That one, yeah.
It's gorgeous. The thing is, if you were to look at the colors individually, they seem rather weird, right? Very individual. But when you look at the painting as a whole, it's just a beautiful sunrise or a sunset. I'm not sure exactly what. But isn't that what you see?
Yes.
And the thing is, it's not exactly what we see in reality, but it's a beautiful rendering. Because I think the mind actually is taking different colors, putting them together, and creating a realist picture. Whereas what the Fauves did was take all those colors and define them more into simple colors. So we are actually made aware of all the colors that are there, but we're not seeing because we're looking at the larger picture. So they're seeing the smaller picture. They're being more intense. I think that is the beauty of the Fauves. You love the Fauves. This is also beautiful. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Realism is definitely another famous Fauve painting over here. Very famous, this one. You can see it in movies and stuff. And so on and so forth. Let me not go off at tangents. Okay, so we have agreed that is definitely art. We also agree that Brigitte loves Impressionism. But by the way, Expressionism, this is Expressionism. I don't know. I'm going to show you one of the most famous paintings, which is The Scream. I'm sure you have seen The Scream by Edvard Munch. There's ample memes using The Scream. Have you ever watched this? Seen this painting, guys?
I think I saw it in a movie.
Oh, you definitely must have seen it in a movie, because this painting is such a famous painting that it's been mentioned in movies. It's been the subject of so many controversies. It's rather one of the great contributions to the human history, and in fact that is why, look at that, so many memes have been created. Look at that. Now, technically speaking, this one, I don't know if I've ever used this emoticon over here. It is built on the screen, literally built on the screen. Well, the story of the screen is quite interesting. This is nothing more than, let's go to the original one, this one. What we're seeing over here is a reflection of pain, human angst. Sort of the pain that humans go through when they're going through a transition in life. For example, a divorce, a death, a loss, a separation anxiety. It's simply a pictorial, a visual rendering of ultimate psychological pain. You know, and it could be done. In fact, this bridge actually exists, and it could be done because this bridge is built over an asylum, a mental asylum, and it is said that whoever walks over this bridge actually can hear the screams of the people who were locked up in this mental asylum in the past, you know, about over 100 years ago. And so this is a rendering of all the pain that is in that mental asylum. You know, those people have been locked in there because they could not live with normal society. So I think it's an extremely powerful painting, and I think that is why, you know, movies and TV shows and whatever go back to it as a reference, and it's been, you know, used as a meme over and over and over and over again. Look at that. So there's so many different. That's cool. You know, such a famous painting, really. Anyone likes what are these called? I forgot.
That's so funny.
That's
Pocket
Psyduck.
Yes, exactly. Psyduck. And again, it's funny and not funny because Psyduck, it's about the brain, right? It's psychology, you know, psychic. So it has a double meaning, a double entendre, one might say. So yeah, there we go. I'm sure some of you might recognize this.
Morty, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Even the background, they changed the background to act.
Exactly. If you just give it a glance, you won't realize. And then there's more over here. There's The Simpsons. There's actually the screen, the move itself. There's a Joker over here. There's Madonna, Patrick of SpongeBob. Over here.
Squidward.
Lego. This is a chicken. An actual chicken with drumsticks. And so on and so forth. And so on and so forth. This is Home Alone. There were, in fact, Home Alone. I don't know if you remember the movie. The first installment of Home Alone. At one point, he actually makes that motion. You know, actually, you know, puts his hand to his face and he's like screaming. Sort
Yeah, the
of.
aftershave scene, I think.
Excuse me.
The aftershave scene. He puts aftershave on.
Yes. And there's that silent scream. Yes. That's it. Thank you for reminding me. Very interesting. Okay. Super. Our next image is this. I don't know if you're aware of the existence of Andy Warhol, a very big name in the 60s. Quite the womanizer. Quite, you know, if he were to live today, he would be definitely one of these rich guys going around in a Lamborghini. You know, sort of, you know, he lived the life. Andy Warhol was the high-end individual of his days. You know, women, sex, drug, rock and rolls, and so on and so forth. He came up with this very unique way of painting. This is just one of them. There's multiple works of Warhol, obviously. Let's just have a look at some of them. There we go. There's the Marilyn Monroe sequence. skull sequence. This is the guy. Looks like a rock star from the 70s, actually. There we go. Very artistic. The definition of an artist. This is pop art. You know, he was. I think many people believe that Warhol was actually one of the first to come up with the modern, the modern concept of advertising. You know, sharp color, color theory, contrast, text in art, and so on and so forth. This is the Chinese prime minister, again using different colors. He took a lot from different paintings, painting styles. We see a lot of impressionism, we see a bit of fauvism, we see expressionism also in his art. He has more realistic painting. When I say realistic, that is in the shape and form rather than the coloring, trying to find. Yeah, there we go. That is definitely a zebra, but obviously, you know, sort of the painting of it is quite atrocious. Okay, so would you see this as art?
I was thinking more design than art, but
Okay.
obviously if Warhol did it, it's art, I guess. Say.
No, I'm very interested in your opinion. You said design, and I like that answer. You actually said that you see it more as design. In fact, we call it art and design, right? We see it as design rather than art. What makes you say that, if I may ask? You don't need to be deep in your answer. Just explain yourself a little bit.
Design, I basically what I see art different than design because it's more used for like commercial use, I guess. Like it's a tomato soup can, so that's why I picture it more as a design more than. I mean, it's art. But
well, that brings us to the argument that even, for example, advertisement can be art. Okay, because some advertisement spots, some advertising images, and so on and so forth, can be totally considered as artistic because of their visual representation. And indeed, I do not blame you. Was it Jamie who was speaking? It was Jamie, right? Yes, Jamie. Yes.
yes.
I do not really blame you because there is a very fine line between art and design. Because I believe that one cannot live without the other. Because art is full of design, and design needs to be artistic. So your answer was, I might say, was perfect. Literally perfect. Because it is, I think Warhol actually managed to go over, in a way, into the land of design in such an easy manner that he started a whole movement which became what we today know as advertising, right? And he created so much food for thought that if that is not art, what is? Because he started a whole way of how people start, actually started affecting each other using images and using visuals. Right, so definitely the right answer. Okay, moving on to our next piece of work, which is by Baldessari, and this is interesting because it is a bit of a, how would you call it, of a sarcastic painting. It's got a lot of sarcasm in it. Why? Because it is a painting of, I'm sure that some of you might have lived in the day and the age when we used to be given punishments, very stupid punishments, where we had to write I don't speak in class for 100 times or 1,000 times, depending on the atrocity of your evil doing. I mean, in fact, in The Simpsons, if I'm not mistaken, The Simpsons actually, each episode starts with Bart Simpson actually writing on the board in his classroom, "I must not," and something stupid. And now the thing is, obviously, we all know and we can relate to that this is super boring. You know, writing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again is the exact opposite of art. Yet he uses it to convey art. How does he do that? Why do you think he's managing that? Do you think he's managing that in the first place? Would you consider this as art? Be truthful.
I don't think, for me, I don't think it's art.
Okay,
It's
look
more
and
like,
say.
like I agree that it's an expression from his end, like to convey a message. But if it was just the calligraphy, I think it would be more artistic rather than the explain
So,
thing.
so look, we agree that in trying to pass a message that is artistic, but the actual piece itself is not artistic per se. Is that where what we're saying? Would you agree?
That is my opinion.
Very good. Brilliant, brilliant. No. I totally appreciate your opinions. And I tend to agree in a way. I agree that sort of when you look at it, you feel yourself smiling and asking yourself, okay, what is she trying to convey? And then through pressuring yourself, you might come up with the notion that yes, he's trying to actually make fun of the system to get us to thinking how silly it was for schools to employ such means of punishment, perhaps. So I believe that in that respect, yes, he is being artistic because he's provoking thought. But he could also be provoking emotion because you might reminisce, with regards to the days when you used to sit down and write. I remember I did my fair share of copies at school and at home, and we used to even try to find ways and means of how to make it quicker. For example, the I. We used to make a line with a ruler and then just draw the lines, which was very silly because they looked anything but eyes. But yes, it gives me the emotion of reminiscing, but I do not think that it's really food for thought in the sense that it doesn't really open up any arguments. Okay, and it's not really expressive in the sense of what we saw when we looked at Monet, for example, when we looked at even Warhol himself, and so on and so forth. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Luke. Let's go to the next one. Now, this is one of my favorites actually because there's so much thought behind it, but you might not concur. This is Joseph Kossuth. And it is intriguing because it is an installation more than an artwork. And what we're seeing over here is the image of a chair, and the description of a chair, the dictionary description of a chair. And it's called 3 and 1 chairs. What do you think, guys?
This was the reason why the first lecture I told you I looked further down and I saw that the art that I don't like the art that was being portrayed there.
What is it called? 3 chair? What did you say, sir? 3
Three
and 1.
3 and 1 chairs.
3 and 1 chairs.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't get it still. Why 3?
You don't get it. Okay, don't worry. I will explain it. And I hope that when I explain it, you will have that moment. And what is? Excuse me. Yeah. Yes. Wait. Mela. What is a chair? That is the problem because technically speaking, a chair is a word, right? A chair in our language in English could actually mean, a thing with four legs and a backrest. It could also be, just somewhere where you sit. But then again, the problem with defining a chair using language is that if you say it in French or German or Russian or whatever language, then suddenly it's not a chair anymore. It becomes something else, unless you know the language. So to be able to facilitate understanding of this language, then we have the chair itself. Okay, so if someone is asking what is the meaning of a chair, the easiest way of portraying that would be to show him a chair. This is a chair. But in the absence of a chair, what do? You show him the image of a chair. So all three are chairs, but all together they make one chair because they give more substance to each other. Are you understanding me? The definition would be nothing on its own. The image is nothing on its own because it's just a representation. And the actual item itself, the tangible item, it's nothing on its own because it does not have a name, it does not have a reference. So if we don't know how to refer to it, then it doesn't exist. Is it making sense?
I think in that case, you need a person to also sit on a chair to show that you can sit on it.
Exactly. Exactly, because you might have chairs which are extremely uncomfortable, for example, and technically speaking, since the existence of this chair, we've had so many versions of chair with 3 legs, with 1 leg, and so on and so forth, that even the definition of the chair must have changed. So this actually needs to be even how can I say it? It needs to be updated in a way. So true. But are you getting the gist of it? He was just trying to experiment with the fact that we sometimes assume too much. We assume that people know what we know. That the image that is in the mind of a person is the exact image that is in our minds. When if I say, for example, airplane, some of you might think of a Boeing 747. Some of you might think of, for example, one of these light crafts. Some of you might think of a fighter jet. They're all airplanes, but it's bringing up different images. So I think this guy was also very nominal in the evolution for the art that we have today, in the sense of the useful art. So that is, for example, advertising and promotion and all those things, sort of the art that we see in every day without the need of going to a museum. The evocative art, because we are understanding, the hidden meanings. Okay, so I think he is underlining that the fact that what is clear in my mind can be unclear in another person's mind. So. And he's doing that by bringing out different representations of the same thing and hence making it more concrete. Talking about concrete, let's move to our next image. And I guess here is where Luke just, closes his laptop and leaves in a huff and a puff. Luke, do you think this is art?
I'm still here.
You're still here.
And no, I don't think it's art.
I could have imagined. This is technically a building which was being torn down, and part of the building was actually reassembled in a closed space. Okay, reassembled in a museum. What do Luke's colleagues think about this particular image? There isn't a name. Doesn't have a name. The beautiful thing about this installation is it absolutely had no reference.
So it wasn't like in a particular place, like which was maybe like iconic. It's just
No.
a random wall.
Random wall from
I
a
mean-
random place which was being torn down, and the artist just picked some pieces, took them to this closed area where he was going to hold his exhibition, and just reassembled them and left them there for people to see.
The fact that there are the stairs, I mean, if it was like my wall, which I used to live in, it would be art for me. But I guess it was just a random wall.
Mm-hmm.
I don't consider this as art.
Okay, fair enough.
If I may, I think that this is similar to the previous discussion about and design, but in this case, it's art and in a way architecture. Okay, it's really torn
design
down, but there, because architecture cannot live without, in a way, having art in it, and that's why.
And I think Very close. You're very close. Very close. You have no idea how close you are to the actual meaning that the artist wanted to portray. What the artist was doing simply over there was getting something which was totally unimportant and unnoticeable, and by simply relocating it, he gave it an absolute importance, and suddenly it took on a meaning of its own and became so different and so evocative. Because suddenly we are actually looking at something which was absolutely meaningless, and we're seeing meaning in it because we're looking at texture, we're looking at shapes, we're looking at forms, we're looking at lines, we are wondering what part of building it was, we are wondering where it was, we are wondering why it was torn down, we are wondering what replaced it, and so on and so forth. So something which was totally abandoned, useless, unnecessary, has taken a different life, a new form, started a life of its own, simply by the artist's intervention. And sometimes this is something that we don't realize, that the artist or the creator, the visual artist, is that person who has taken rules, who has taken ideas, elements that are not really making sense when they are separate from each other, but by having the knowledge and ability to put them together, he has suddenly, or she have suddenly creating something which has become meaningful. And obviously over here, some people might say this is silly, it's just a wall. But it is the concept that I'm talking about. It is the concept, for example, of computer-generated images. Look, because technically speaking, when you see a movie and you see how amazing that movie is, for example, a Marvel movie or some fantasy movie with dragons or you know, all these special effects, when you see a movie, technically speaking, if we were to see ourselves, okay, we are the most idiotics of beings, because all we are seeing over there is literally computer generated graphics that have been applied over a green wall, whilst you have this actor dressed in a jumpsuit, you know, just jumping around and saying silly lines and you know, fooling around and so on and so forth. But put together by the producer, by the director, by the editors, by the voiceovers, and so on and so forth, put together, it makes sense and becomes a production which actually gives us emotions, makes us feel like it's reality, makes us forget our reality and immerse ourselves for 2-3 hours in this imagined and recreated reality. And this is what we call film. What do you think, guys? Are you making the parallel?
Yes,
actually, the way you explained it makes a lot of sense.
Interesting. Because let's face it, if you ever looked at a movie, at the making of, you would be surprised and you would probably have a smile, an uncanny smile on your face when you see your favorite scene. For example, last time I was watching The Witcher, Christmas time, I was watching The Witcher, you know, one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite books and games and so on and so forth. Amazing storytelling, obviously. Very good movement from book to game to film. The transmedia is complete. I think it's just beautifully rendered. But apart from that, when I was seeing the making of, you see Henry Cavill, who again is a beautiful species of human being, and his companions, other witches, and so on and so forth. You see them, you know, just running around with make-believe swords and make-believe costumes in front of green screens and fighting imaginary monsters and so on and so forth. And you know, it looks so funny, it looks so ridiculous even. It looks ridiculous. But watching that series, those eight episodes, was, sort of a beautiful part of my life, because, they managed to take me into an imaginative world, which I would otherwise either have difficulty in imagining, or else, sort of, not just that, but they recreated what I read in the book in such an amazing way that it actually was entertainment. It was brilliant entertainment. So I believe that what this artist did over here, such a silly idea, really, silly notion, is nothing more than a simple replica of what we see on a cinema and in a game every single day of our lives. Literally. Exactly. Just changing, tweaking here and there, and making something, incredible from some, bits and pieces. Literally bits and pieces. Okay, guys, moving on. Here I have a comic. Spider-Man. Do you believe that comics are art?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Anyone else would like to not concur? Luke.
No, for me it is art.
Okay, alright, طيب. I'm binna. Well, God forbid someone had said that comics are not art, because actually my next lecture is going to be entirely on sequential art, which is the academic name for comics, because comics have actually been studied, and there are actually degrees, diplomas, and even PhDs which focus on comics and sequential art, because it is one of the most evocative and entertaining arts, and it is one of the ways how human beings have affected each other over the years, over the decades, across the globe. But that is another thing. And the beautiful thing about comics is that we have managed to marry design, art, and text. Van Gogh was Van Gogh, Bridget. Sorry, I'm just seeing your comment. He was an impressionist. Van Gogh was an impressionist.
Okay.
Okay, he definitely experimented a lot with color, and also similar to Monet and Manet, he experimented with the impasto technique, and even you see, for example, his room, which is entitled My Room, because he's referring to his room. You see a lot of texture. He believed that he could actually render three-dimensionality not simply through perspective, linear perspective, but also through the texture applied. So he forsook totally aerial perspective, which basically is that things the farther away from you, they would appear less focused, less specific, and less visible and dark, and so on and so forth. And the closer they are to you, they would be more more focused and more defined, and so on and so forth. So he forsook that totally, and instead he replaced it with textured paint. And he managed, in a way, yes, he did manage to prove his theory. He did manage to prove his theory. He did it through My Room. He did it through, for example, Starry Night. Although it's just color, like a really thick color plays. Now you can still, feel the emotion of a Starry Night. Sort of. Let's have a look at Starry Night quickly. So I'm going off at a tangent again, but I love showing you guys sort of what I'm talking about rather than just talk. So this is Starry Night. I'm sure that you have seen it at one point in time. That's Starry Night. And although it's just impasto, it's just literally daubs of paint. Literally, you can see the texture, you can see the thickness. It's applied with a painting knife again. But at a glance, you can lose yourself in that. You can literally see a Starry Night. You can see the sort of the stars moving around and shining in a dark night. Sort of a night with lack of light. But then you have the darkness in the sky. Let's have a look at that. You know, can you see the motion now? So if we were to go between these two paintings, all right, we were to just go between them, you can actually start seeing that movement being reenacted in this work. Okay, guys. Mela. So moving on to our final painting, which is not a painting per se, but it can be said as painting, which is graffiti. Would you consider graffiti as art?
I think it can be.
Okay. Okay. Now, obviously, there are different types of graffiti. There are the amazing graffitis, the one that I have over there, and then there's the, I think, I don't know how to call it, but you know, there's the graffiti which is done by human beings who just do it just to destroy a surface, you know, a public surface, and that would be vandalism rather than graffiti. Have you ever heard of Banksy? Anyone? The mighty Banksy. Who was that? I love the guy. He was from Birmingham, if I'm not mistaken.
That's beautiful.
Excuse me?
That's beautiful. I like that.
It is. You know, he does a very particular type of graffiti because it is stencil graffiti. So basically, what he does is, well, I'm saying he. No one really knows who Banksy is. That's not his name. It's his nom de plume. And he keeps himself anonymous because it started off as anonymity because obviously graffiti was always illegal in every country. It is only now since he has, you know, made himself so famous that, you know, people are yearning to have part of his work in their towns or in their cities. You know, at one point we actually thought that Banksy had also been to Malta, but it was a fake. It wasn't a real Banksy. He went to the States, he went to a lot of European cities, he's been around, you know, some people say it's just one person, some people say it's a group of people, but it's just literally stencils prepared somewhere, and then they quickly spray over them, and it's done. So that's why most of them are in black and white. Okay, this is from a very famous image of a protester throwing a Molotov cocktail, and instead we see that it's been replaced by a bouquet of flowers. So all the images have very poignant messages. This is a little girl who's sort of, we see that the balloon has escaped. The balloon is the shape of a heart, so it's love lost. So it's an abandoned girl. It's all about little girls and boys with no parents because of the trauma of separation. This is really great. This is just, you know, a graffiti which has been assimilated with reality over here. So we have the two-dimensional and the three-dimensional coming together to form one image. She's playing with the tire, which we assume, which our mind immediately assumes that is this, okay, over here. So our mind immediately removes the banal and assumes the real, okay. And there's so much more. There's so much more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So, there would actually be. I'm trying to find. No, this is something. I'll talk to you about this. Yes, as Alexandru said, there would be something which is actually, for example, look at this. It's a bus stop, and would actually do something on top of it and would actually give it a different meaning. So now instead of a bus stop, it has become sort of a performance stage. Exactly, you know, that kind of. Yes, yes. Yes, I've seen these. I've seen this on social media. They are beautiful. They are. Look at that. Look at that. The second one is just gorgeous. It's incredible. That is beautiful. And yes, these are all, you know, people who are actually, you know, were pushed into being creative by the likes of individuals like Banksy, and that is why we actually call them artists, because they start a movement, they start an awareness. Look at that. This is the wall, if I'm not mistaken. This is the wall in the Gaza Strip. It's between Israel and Palestine. And this is what he did. This is what he did, and it's quite evocative, you know, because we're seeing sort of what children really want. Children don't want this concrete wall dividing people, but children want just to play and enjoy themselves. You know, a child playing with an airplane, because let's face it, how many times do parents buy this kind of toys for children, and isn't that like training them to accept the notion of war? Should we be gifting these kind of toys to children? Are we realizing what we are normalizing? Oh, that is gorgeous, Alexandra. That is gorgeous, and so realistic that it looks like, you know, an actual drop, you know. And I think you might even feel vertigo if you go there. Most probably, you might even feel the vertigo, feel that sort of that idea of you know, falling into a chasm. Brilliant, guys. I want to talk to you about this particular work over here. Let me see. Where was it? This is a beautiful play on a French painting, Napoleon Bonaparte. So let me show you Napoleon Bonaparte painting. It is yeah. Here we go. Napoleon crossing the Alps. It is literally making fun of, satirizing, you know, the very famous painting of Napoleon in a regal paraphernalia, riding this beautiful stallion, and that's what he did. You know, he literally made fun of it, you know, with the cloak draping over his face, because there's something that can actually happen, you know, sort of it's not like, you know, this looks like it's been literally posed, obviously, but, you know, something like this could actually really happen, you know, sort of when the cloak blows in your face because of the wind. But there was that one image that I want to talk to you about. Where was it? Bear with me, guys. I know it's here somewhere. Here we go. So this was a graffiti of Banksy that was sold off at an auction for quite a hefty price. And the fun thing about it, that Banksy actually installed a shredder in the frame itself. So the moment the painting was actually sold and the gravel came down and the final amount was disclosed, and that's it, the item actually belongs to a person, the painting shredded itself. Literally, just right there and then. Automatically. A lot of people actually were horrified, because that meant that a piece of work, amazing work, was destroyed, but a lot of people actually were gratified, because they believed that that was just the next life of the painting. That is what Banksy wanted. That was the evolution of the painting itself. The actual shredding of the painting was the art itself. How interesting is that? You know, it's literally, you know, sort of the closest you can come to art being alive, because it's being done, it's happening in front of you.
Or maybe he didn't want one wealthy person to have it.
That was one of the explanations also, but then there are those who preferred to have a more positive connotation to it. I, being a bit of a of a sucker for positivity, I try to stick to those dreams. Here we go. And now it's been hung like that now. You can actually see it. So it's quite interesting. Okay, guys, brilliant. Mela, you know what we're going to do? We did all these, and we're going to start from vision cues, slide 22. So we're going to have 5 minutes break. Literally, we can come back at like 7:15. Right? You can go and make yourselves a coffee, perhaps, and I'll see you back here to continue the last part of our presentation. Okay, guys?
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, thank you.
See you soon, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. See you soon. Hi again, guys. Hope you enjoyed your break. Thank you for getting back to me. And cheers, Bridget. And the last part of this session is going to concentrate on vision cues. Now, what are vision cues? Let's analyze the term itself. Vision is obviously what we see. It's the ability of assimilating visual representations in our brain. So technically it's the ability to see color, to see line, to see shape, to see form, and so on and so forth. We already went through the elements themselves, and it is these elements that we are discussing before, the elements of art, that constitute vision, because that is what we see ultimately. And cues would be, technically speaking, those elements that start off a process of thought in our brain, making us and engineering us into creating a believable image in our brains. All right, so as for example Alexandru showed us in his last image on the subject chat, we know deep down, we know that is not real. We know that that's a painting done with chalk on a ground, on a concrete floor. But when you look at it from a certain perspective, there's a certain realism to it, which makes you say, wow, and actually for a split second gets you to want to see more of the world down there, and actually even perhaps evokes a sense of fear because of the possibility of falling into something where you can't fall. And there are various. For example, there is actually an advert. If I remember correctly, it's a Honda advert. Can you just bear with me? Honda Illusion advert. I think it's Honda. Oh yes, it's Honda. The Honda CR-V. It's quite an oldish one, but let's have a look at this. I'm going to send you a link of the Honda advert. Okay, you can see it from your, but technically speaking, you can also see it on my screen because we don't really mind, we don't really care about the sound. So here it goes. You can see it on my screen. So that's the first part of the ad. He goes in the car. We see the artist trying to balance, and then we realize that it's just an illusion. And then, oh my God, no! All right, it's just an illusion. Phew, guys. And that is awesome because that is literally how they did the dwarves and the hobbits in Lord of the Rings. This is also something, sort of you think that it's a whole statue, but that's just gorgeous. Even the people, and the bicycle, and the signs, and everything. Let's have a look at that again, because seriously? Yes, there we go. And something interesting is this. Without realizing what made us actually believe this, what made us believe that, is not the person walking. What made us believe all this illusion over here are these two people over here which are looking down, so automatically we assume that we're looking down on something and we're seeing something from a bird's eye perspective. So we believe. So it's easier for the visual artist to cheat us into seeing something. Even the underground is fake. What do you think of that, guys? Indeed, and it's just cheating the eye, cheating the brain, simply by the use of perspective. Literally by this, the power of perspective is so powerful. Sort of, it's so easy to cheat. It's so easy to cheat individuals into thinking something or believing something. All you have to do is ensure that you give them the right perspective of something. Once they have the perspective that you want them to have, that's it. You have managed to get them to believe whatever you want them to believe. So there's vision cues. So we're going to have a look at ambiguous and unambiguous depth cues. And we're going to have a look at each and every one of those: binocular vision, accommodation, binocular disparity, convergence, parallax, size, and perspective. Let's start with the first one, binocular vision. One obvious advantage of the second eye is that it provides an increased field of view. So I would like you to do something silly, but it's interesting. So basically, what I would like you to do is close one eye, the right eye, the left eye, depends, doesn't really matter, and cover that eye with your hand. So basically, you don't just close an eye, but you also cover that eye with a hand. All right, now you realize that the moment you do that, suddenly you're seeing much less. All right, your field of view has decreased by literally 50%. Okay, so having two eyes serves a very particular purpose, and that purpose is to increase the field of view. We have the focal field of view, and we have the peripheral image. So what is happening is that each eye is capturing sort of a continuous film, a continuous recording, visual recording, and then these are overlapped. Okay, so technically speaking, the overlapping parts are the parts which you can see clearly and in focus. The rest, which do not overlap, is the peripheral view. Is the parts that you are seeing, but you are not focusing upon. Hence, you are technically not really seeing. You can see motion, but you can't really decipher what is making that motion. Okay, so it could be a person, it could be an animal, it could be anything. So you see that something's happening, and that would put you on guard, hence so much so that you might look in that area, look in that direction. And this is in fact very useful, for example, for virtual reality or 360 filming. Because how can you attract the attention of the viewer in a space where he has absolute control? Now you haven't put him in a normal CGI 3D game. Now you have not put him in front of a movie, watching a movie or a 360 film. Sorry, a flat two-dimensional movie or a flat two-dimensional game. Okay, I got mixed up there a bit. Now you have put him in absolute control because you gave him the recording. You gave him the controls, and you also gave him the possibility to move in a virtual space wherever he wants, wherever he likes, front, back, up, down, left, right, and so on and so forth. Okay, Jamie's saying that it's lagging. Is it only from his end, or is it everyone? That is it my problem or Jamie's problem?
It seems stable here.
So Jamie, it's your problem. I'm sorry. Stop interrupting my lesson. I'm kidding, Jamie. Do you want to disconnect and reconnect, perhaps? It might solve the problem. Jamie. Jamie's typing. Excuse me. Okay, I'll try to connect wired. Alright, shall I give you a couple of minutes? I can't. Alright. No. Okay, guys, let's give Jamie a couple of minutes to reconnect, please. Suggest you disconnect and reconnect. Usually solves the problem. It's been a long time since I heard BRB, since MIRC. Do you guys remember MIRC? Are you old enough to remember MIRC, or am I still the Neolithic Neanderthal guy in this group? Excuse me, Alex? Oh, then you are very young. How old are you, Alex, if I might? 36 is young. Trust me, 36 is young. It's 10 years younger than I am, nearly. MIRC was sort of the messenger on the past, but was just typing. It did not have video abilities. It did not have, I don't remember if it had oral abilities, but it's basically communication via chat. It was the first chat service that existed even before Skype.
There's more chat rooms, no? I mean, I've only reached the tail end of it. I don't really recall it that much, but I didn't know that it existed.
Chat rooms, literally. I know a lot of people actually met on MIRC, and today are married with kids. Incredibly enough, because it was obviously one of the first ways how to connect using the internet, and so it facilitated even sort of the painful first steps of relationship creation. The asking a girl out.
It was also like the only way to actually it was only the social connection other than BBS boards. But
MSN Messenger, I remember.
I remember very well.
That's quite.
I'm back, Sarah. To continue.
Okay. Brilliant.
Because
Thank
I
you.
just joined.
Did you connect yourself via wired?
No, I don't have a wire because I'm not at home at the moment. But I disconnected and connected again.
Yes. Usually that always works.
I mean, it seems better now.
Very good. Now we were discussing MIRC and Messenger. MIRC was one of the earliest forms of communication when it comes to internet. If I was making it came, it existed at a time when we still had dial-up modem.
In the 90s, so it was the first as that like Messenger. Nowadays, like they're very cool. I mean, like to chat and meet. But no, we don't have chat rooms like MIRCA though.
Exactly. And you need to be accepted in the chat room. Oh, mamma mia. Nostalgia. Okay, guys, so back to binocular vision. So binocular vision tech results when the brain combines these disparate images. They're disparate because they're seeing different parts of what's there around you, creating what we call stereoscopic depth. Stereoscopic because it's a two-way thing, and depth because it's creating a certain belief, understanding of distance. So it is giving us the idea that there is space in front of you. Okay, there is space in front of you. Now, I was also referring to virtual reality, 360 film, and 3D movies, and so on and so forth. And technically speaking, this peripheral vision is very important in that regard because it is one of the director's few means of guiding the viewer in a 360 space wherever the director wants him to go. Because on a flat surface, on a two-dimensional surface, that is very easy because he's just going to point the camera at a place and that's it. That's what you're going to see. And no matter how much you move your head around, it's limited to the square of the TV and that's it. But once you're in a 360 space, once you're in virtual reality, obviously you have freedom of movement galore. You can look up and down, you can move right and left, you can do whatever you want. So obviously you need guidance because if it's going to be a film, if it's going to be a game, the director of the film and the game needs to guide you where they want you to go. So this is one of the techniques which is used by putting something in your peripheral vision, and the moment you see a movement in your peripheral vision, automatically you will look that way and you will see the threat coming, and then you would go into that direction. You can also, instead of having simple movements, you can have different colors. For example, you'll be in a dark setting and you'd have a light, or you'd be in a morbid setting and you have a bright color, like for example, I don't know, a guy in a suit, in a clown suit, in a rundown place, and stuff like that, things that attract your mind's attention. And this brings us to stereo vision, which originated from stereos, which means firm or solid. So why did stereo come from stereos, the Greek word stereos, technically speaking? Because ultimately stereo, isn't that stereo about, sort of two sources of sound, for example? Well, the derivation actually makes sense when you realize that when we have created a solid rendering of a three-dimensional spatial existence, that is when we have weight to an object. We give weight to an object and we create a solid object. So with the creation of the XYZ axis, so with the creation of a virtual space or an actual space, that is when we have created depth, we have created distance, we have created perspective, and hence we have given solidity to anything that we place in that space. So if we put a table in that space, suddenly that table has become a solid. It's actually positioned in a place, and your mind starts believing that you can go on the table, under the table, and around the table, and your mind assumes it immediately, even if it could be just a CG render, even though it might not be 100% realistic looking. Your mind still tells you that they have the ability to go under it, over it, and so on and so forth. All right? So this is what we're talking about, basically. Over here, what we're seeing is, if we were to go back to the questions I was asking you before, and this question is specifically being asked for the GDD people. So there's Brigitte, there's Jamie, there's Maria, and there's Luke specifically. Do you think this is art?
Yeah, I think so. It's digitally created, no?
Yes, it's art.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So you guys agree with NFTs?
Paying that much money for something like that, I personally wouldn't do, but
Okay, you got my how can I call it? It's not sarcasm at all. It is irony. It's irony, I might say. Do the others believe it's art? If we were to take a perspective, an artistic perspective of the artist, of the ability of the artist to make you believe, then it is definitely art. And that is the success of computer-generated images and games and virtual reality and so on and so forth. It is because we are transferred into another world where we interact willingly. We interact with passion. We interact so strongly with this make-believe world that we forget that it's make-believe and we assume that it is the real world. For a couple of hours there, whilst we're playing the game, for a couple of hours while we're in this visually generated place, in this virtual reality ambience, we lose touch with reality, and this fake space becomes our reality because the artist was capable enough to generate a reality which we can easily immerse ourselves into. So definitely it's art. And although I can tell you I'm seeing depth in this image because I'm seeing that the scars closer than these guys, and if I know that I need to shoot at these guys, then I need to move my gun around, and I need to aim higher perhaps, and I need to focus more. And I am seeing that there's very much linear perspective. There's 1 point perspective here. You can see it with all these lines converging on this vanishing point. You can see there's not just linear perspective, there's area perspective. We see that it's darker over here, it's out of focus over there. All these elements have been incorporated together like that brick wall that we have seen just a few minutes ago. They have been incorporated and put in a situation where suddenly they make sense. So with stereo vision, we can see where objects are in relation to us with much greater precision. But technically speaking, though, it is all a parody. It is all nonsense, because it's just a two-dimensional surface, it's just a screen. And even if we were to go into a virtual reality space, it is nothing, it is just space. There is nothing really there. And even if we were to put on a suit whereby we can get feelings and tangible sort of we get enhanced touch and so on and so forth. Ultimately, that is just a measure of how to make it even more believable. But it works.
So it is per se just using like visual cues that look like they are 3D, but just to give the impression that it is 3D, when in reality it isn't.
And in reality, it's just a two-dimensional surface, or it's just ones and zeros adding up to images around you, literally.
All right then.
Okay. And this is all derived from all the paintings and the works of art that we have seen. Slowly, we have managed to get to this point because we have trained ourselves as human beings to accept it. If all the other paintings, all the other works, all the other art did not exist, we would never have arrived to this stage because our minds would not accept it. We have been slowly training ourselves to believe and immerse ourselves in such environments. Are you understanding?
So it is also why like certain experimental works aren't that like well acclaimed with everybody because of the different visual cues that we're not trained for.
Yes. It happens because of exposure. So sort of the people who are obviously more interested and they expose themselves more, then they would be more accepting. The people who shy away, not out of ignorance, but simply out of out of how would you say it in English? Out of likes and dislikes, so automatically they would be less accepting. Right? So people transition in different ways. People accept in different ways. So when a person says that is not art, it's not because he is ignorant in that respect, but because he is less accepting in that respect, and because he sees less perhaps in that respect, and he accepts less in that respect. So there's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely nothing wrong. It is just a matter of not the depth of the evolution of the individual, all right, but the width of the evolution of the individual. Where did the individual evolve more? Perhaps the evolution prefers to evolve more in a mathematical sense rather than a visual sense.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Brilliant. Accommodation. This has a more biological answer to it. So what we can see here is that we can roughly measure distance by noting the change in accommodation needed to bring an object into focus. This works very well for close objects, but not so well for far objects. So basically, if we were to look at the image over here, we would see that when the eyes, can you see the difference over here between this eyeball, and this eyeball, the lens? So here we're seeing that there is more happening over here to be able to see the near object, but there is less happening over here. There's less adjustment, what we call accommodation, to see the distant object. So because the eye is adjusting less for the distant object. Hence, the eye sees. Now I'm doing, you're not seeing me, but I'm doing sort of vague inverted commas in the air. The eye is seeing less of the object. It doesn't mean that the object is less specific. It's the same object. It's just, excuse me. It's just that the eye automatically accommodates itself less, so that it gives the impression to the mind that the object is more distant. So the eye is cheating the mind in making the mind believe that the object is further away than other objects which are closer. So let me explain. If you have something, let's say a physical defect, God forbid, which does not allow you to accommodate this muscle over here, this lens over here, does not allow it to accommodate appropriately to objects which are further away from each other, further away from the persona, then automatically you will not be able to measure distance as well. Let me ask you a question. Let me see whom I'm going to pick on. Jamie. You don't mind, do you?
Hit me up.
Brilliant. Jamie, can you look around you?
Uh-huh.
Do you have a chair in your close proximity?
No, I don't have a chair here.
Do you have something else which is tangible? Do you have an object in your close proximity?
Like the drawers, maybe?
Okay, how
Which
far away are they from you, roughly?
Half a meter.
Half a meter. Now, look at the door, Jamie. How far away is the door?
It's like a meter apart from me.
Okay, brilliant. Jamie, now think about St. Martin's. Okay?
All right.
How far away is St. Martin's from your exact position right now?
To St. Martin's. 4 kilometers, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
That is not precise, is it?
No.
Absolutely not. But obviously your understanding of the distance between the chest of drawers and the door from your actual positioning right now was quite precise, was it?
Yes.
Why do you think that happened?
Because I can look at the door. It's tangible. I can reach it. I mean, if I wake up, it's at close distance where my eye basically is making the measurements.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to say. I'm literally making the measurements with what I'm seeing.
Exactly. It is uncanny how much the eye and the mind can work together to be able to measure distance that we can see, but immediately get lost the moment we can't see the place that we are used to seeing perhaps daily. If you tell me right now, sort of, I've just been to St. Martin's and I've been back home, and if you tell me right now how far away, obviously I have absolutely no idea of the distance because I can't see it. But if I look around me and you tell me, okay, where's your kitchen, or where's the main door, or where's the roof, or so, I can give you a rough estimate, and that rough estimate might be actually quite accurate because I can see. And even if you can't see it, but it's quite close to your position, you can calculate it roughly. But the further away it is, obviously you start losing that close proximity, and hence you can't really calculate it. All right. So that is something else that we need to take into consideration. So when someone is looking at a creation, at one of our creations, the further away it is, we need to give him an idea of the distance measurement. So when he looks at a painting, when he looks at the game, when he's inside the virtual reality, creation, okay, he can actually guess the distance as easy as possible to make it even more immersive. But then something that he's seen a while ago, but he's not seeing anymore, all right, he can't really guess the distance as well as he should, because obviously of how it can be compared to a real situation. Convergence depends on the angle between the eyes. This angle changes depending on if the object is close or far. So at the near point, this angle is at a maximum of 15 degrees. It is only 1 degree for an object only 4 meters from your eyes. Like accommodation, convergence changes most and is thus most useful for gauging depth in nearby objects. So if we were to go back to this image over here, we'll realize that this angle, all right, the angle that is made between these two lines is changing depending on the closeness of the object. So the further away the object, the more distant it is, the angle here is even smaller. Okay, but the closer it is, then the angle over here opens up more and is more and is wider. So that would be convergence. Moving on to parallax, and parallax is a very interesting notion because it is very easily conceived, especially on platformer games. It is the way how to recreate an idea of motion without actually having motion, and it was also used for film in the past. It's used for film today, and using green screens today, using green screens or blue screens in the past. So basically, all you do is, in reality, let's say we are in this car and this car is moving. When this car is moving, we'll see that the closer area, which is the foreground. Okay, Bridget, so accommodation is the adjustment each eye needs to make individually, and convergence is the eye adjusting by moving towards each other for closer objects. Yes. Perfect, Bridget.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. So the foreground is moving at a certain rate. The midground is moving a bit slower than the foreground, and the background would be the one which is moving least fast. All right, so this would be moving very fast, this would be moving quite slow, and this would be quite still. So because that happens, we know that we're moving. So by reenacting that movement, we think that we're moving. So if we were to, for example, place a character on a platform, okay, let me actually demonstrate it via YouTube. I love using YouTube. Thank God for YouTube. Thank God for Sergey Brin and his friend, the Google dudes. Mela, platformer. So this is the best way of creating an illusion of movement, right? So let's have a look at this. There's an ad. Excuse me, apologies. Just wait for the seconds to pause, and here we go. Let's stop that. All right, can you see the background moving? So basically, what we're seeing is that this is not exactly the best platformer because it's quite three-dimensional. But even in three-dimensionality, we see that there are different levels. Let's move a bit backward. We are seeing that there are different levels. Okay, usually it's the foreground, the middle ground, the background. Sometimes we make different representations of the middle ground, different representations of the background, because the more levels we have, the more the deeper it looks and the more realistic it looks. But if you look closely, you can see that they are moving at different rates of speed, and hence recreating, there we see it, recreating a semblance of movement. And this is a three-dimensional one. If it was, this is very interesting. If it was a more two-dimensional, because these are upcoming ones, obviously they would be a bit complex. Let's have a look at a more simplified. Yep, here we go. Okay, so look over here. Let's look over here, guys. Let's look at the background. There's no movement in the background. Are you realizing that there's absolutely no movement? So this is not really convincing us that anything is moving. So basically, the camera is moving, but not the actual surrounding is moving. Okay, but because this is pixel art, so obviously there's a different science, artistic science towards it. If we were to see something like, let's have a look at this one. What we need to see. Allow me to find something. today. All right, here we go. Can you see the foreground moving quite fast? The middle ground is moving slower, and the background is literally static. Are you seeing it, guys? Okay.
Like Little Big Planet, like sort of that kind of gameplay.
Erja, repeti, Jamie, because I lost you for a bit.
Little Big Planet, when you have the screen which is like fixed. Alright.
Exactly. And it is one of the easiest way how to cheat the eye, literally. It also used to be used. Snow White was one of the first, I think. Indeed, yes. It was literally something which was conceived very early in the day, and they also used to do it a lot in Hollywood with the first movies. For example, they used to have a static car, so the car would literally not be moving. They would have the people inside the car, and then you'd have the scene rushing past the car, literally on repeat. So you'd have this part which was going extremely fast. This part would go slower, and this part would literally remain static, and you'll have this illusion of movement. But you would believe it because your mind is telling you to actually believe it. So that's the definition of parallax, which in Greek basically is derived from parallaxis, meaning alteration. So the alteration of reality. The last item that we're going to mention, it is the last item. Then there's size. No, sorry, it is the penultimate. It's the penultimate item that we're going to mention is binocular disparity. Now, because the two eyes are separated by give or take 6.5 centimeters, so if you were to take a 15 centimeter ruler, put it between your eyes, literally, you would realize that the distance between one eye and the other is give or take 6.5. Now, technically, 6.5 is the perfect render. Okay, so beautiful people usually have a distance of 6.5. Now some people have 6, some people have 7, so obviously that could be either wide set eyes or close set eyes, what we call close set and wide set. So it doesn't mean that they're less beautiful, but they would be just different. Okay, that would be different. But the ideal Greek representation was 6.5 centimeters. That is the average. Because these two eyes are separated by 6.5 centimeters, so here we have the eyes, here we have the nose. Because there's this distance, we do not need to move our heads to get a perception of depth. Now, I don't know if you know, but a lot of the animals which are hunted usually have eyes on the side of the head or further away from each other. Have you ever realized that? I'm sure you have, like chickens or deer and so on and so forth, right? You with me, guys?
Yes.
Yes. Now you also must have realized that these creatures are always moving their heads around. Have you ever seen a tiny little bird in a cage always moving its head around, like you know, that very edgy movement? Do you know why they do that movement? Do you have any idea why that movement happens? Why they're always moving their head? Anyone?
Because of the tiny FOV that they have, field of view.
Yes, because the field of view, okay, does not actually overlap. So because it does not overlap, they do not have an idea of depth. Are you with me?
Okay, all right.
So if they don't have an idea of depth, so Mela,
Know how far the subject is.
yeah, because their eyes are further away from each other, so they have a much more extended field of view. But because of that, they need to sacrifice the overlap. Now it is the overlap which gives us that sense of depth and that sense of two-dimensionality. So because they don't have that, excuse me, guys, excuse me. Excuse me for that, guys. So okay, so because they have sacrificed the field of the depth because they want to increase the field of view, all right? So they want to see more, but they need to move their head in fast motions because when we see, we actually have a split-second recollection of everything that we see. So our brain remembers what it has seen a second ago before it starts thinking and seeing what the eyes are seeing in the next second. So the brain will overlap those, but the eyes are not overlapping those. So by moving its head quickly, it will create a recreation of that overlap. The animal. Have I made myself clear? Am I mixing you up? Making sense, guys?
Yes, sounds good
That's
to me.
good.
All right, so because the animal moves quickly, right? The head is moving very quickly, right? And the brain is keeping an image of what it's seen a split second, in the past. And then a split second in the future, those are going to be overlapped for a split second, and that can create, a fake sense of depth. Obviously, the animals which are the hunters do not have that problem, and in fact they have a much better concept of depth, and hence why they have evolved as hunters while the others have evolved as hunted. This is what is called binocular disparity. However, we see a three-dimensional world, not two-dimensional images. As before, binocular disparity, so the difference, the distance, also works best for close objects. So the closer they are, we can define the depth more, because the eyes see almost the same for faraway objects. So if we were to look at a mountain, you were to ask me how far away the mountain is, I would look absolutely nonplussed. So even if I were to be looking at the mountain, I would have absolutely no idea how far away the mountain is. If I say 1,000 kilometers or 100 kilometers, it would probably both ideas would probably be equally wrong. But if you then ask me how distant is, I don't know, a tree which is like 10 meters away, then I would be, the probability is that I would be much more aware of its distance from my present. Let's have a look at this image quickly. Now, the interesting about this image is that although we're seeing concave and convex over here, technically speaking, it's the same image. The same image has been turned around. So here, sort of this avocado, computer-generated avocado, has been turned around, and because we are seeing it at a different angle, here we're seeing a concave, and while here we're seeing a convex shape. Similarly, over here, we are seeing that this one sort of is concave. These are convex, but the moment we turn it around, right, we see actually the opposite happening. Okay, these just absolutely just immediately change, but it's exactly the same image. Like this was exactly the same image. I'm going to stop here for today, guys. Next lesson we'll start off with some interesting image from Hogarth and Escher, and our final element, which is depth cues and size. Okay. Any questions at this point, please? No? All right, guys. So I will just wish you a happy evening with your families, and I wish the people who are having a holiday tomorrow to enjoy it, whatever they're doing. Luke, I wish you a very productive day. I'm sure that you will have your holiday at some point in time. And bon appetit, everyone, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Remember, in the meantime, if you have any problem with your assignment, please do not hesitate to message me. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Thank you so much.
Sir, good night.
Bye.
Have
Thank
a
you,
good
sir.
evening.
Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you.